Hi everyone, this is Cody from the F blog, and today I'm going to talk about living in Ireland. For those of you that don't already know, I'm from the United States, Port Huron, Michigan to be exact. A smaller city of about 30,000 people adjacent to one of the Great Lakes, Lake Huron. I was never a super adventurous person. Outgoing and crazy sometimes, but not adventurous. Within my lifetime up until this last year, I had only really traveled to like 2 other states and a very small handful of other cities in Michigan. If you guys are interested, I can go over my life in detail in another post over the last year, since that's a story in and of itself. But long story short, I left that non-adventurous guy behind and moved forward with my life. I got married to a beautiful and amazing Irish woman in New York City, and flew with her back to Ireland to live while we work on getting things set up to move back to the US. While I've been here, I've gotten to experience things that I wouldn't have back in the US, and I'm super grateful for it, and I just want to talk about some of the things I've got to experience. The first thing that is the easiest to mention is just how beautiful it is here. Lots of hills and green pastures surrounded by trees and beautiful stone and brick houses. The roads wind through it all, carving paths in the middle of it, allowing you to experience the landscape around you in a really beautiful way. When traveling to other towns, it's not uncommon to see horses, sheep, and other animals behind fences happily grazing and looking at you as you drive through. One spot in particular, the Curragh, is a big open field where tons of sheep roam around constantly. These guys have the privilege of not being stuck behind a fence and roam pretty much wherever they please, even crossing the road sometimes to meet a friend on the other side. While this may not be something incredibly uncommon to see in a farmland in the US, it's hard to really describe how natural and real it feels here in Ireland. Now, since this is Europe, there are a lot of days that can be rainy and gloomy outside, but I feel like it's not as much of a damper on the mood while being here. Some days a cloudy sky with a light drizzle looks really gorgeous. And saying that, the times when the sun is shining is just awe-inspiring. There's nothing quite like coming around a bend and seeing the sun up in the gorgeous blue sky with shiny green grass below. The people in Ireland are super friendly. I've yet to come across anybody that has been an outright asshole to me, and it's a breath of fresh air. One thing that I have noticed is there is a sort of shortness to how a lot of people talk and act. It's not really a negative thing, just people talk quickly and act quickly, and then move on to their next matter of business. Something as simple as talking on the phone for something that isn't a personal matter is quick, straight to the point, and over before you know it. What is funny about this is that if you're meeting somebody that is trying to have a conversation, there's nothing quick about it. You can find yourself having a conversation for 15 minutes randomly if a discussion point comes up, and it really shows that the social matters are an important aspect, while people who are trying to take care of business matters want it to be short, sweet, and to the point as to get it over with. I don't know if this is just something I've noticed or a common thing that people can point out, but it's cool to see the difference of how people act here in different types of settings. The food here is somehow not that crazy different, and yet completely different at the same time. While I may have eaten a lot of what is eaten here in one form or another back home, there are certain ways it's prepared here, and it's served with different things sometimes. When I think of beans, I think of a barbecue with baked beans going with my other grilled food, or maybe with my Thanksgiving dinner. But here it's not uncommon to have them with your toast or other breakfast items. Lamb is also way more common to eat here since it's an animal that is a little more common to have raised. Chinese is interesting because it's very common to get takeout and have chips, thicker cut fries for you Americans, come with your meal. In fact, even though it's cliche and seems like a stereotype, it really is common to have a potato dish with a lot of different meals. Of course, there are times when something a little different might pop up, black and white pudding for example, but those things still end up being not too out there and still taste good. Overall, the food isn't crazy weird, it's just prepared different and served with different types of meals, and I find myself unable to find something that hasn't tasted delicious. The culture here is very family-oriented. If a family isn't all living together, they see each other rather often. While this isn't something strictly happening in Ireland, you do get an overwhelming sense that family here is a lot more important than in most places in the US. I'm not someone who is close to a lot of my own family, but even with that being said, comparing it to a lot of people that I know and how they interact with their families, there's not as strong of a presence throughout their lives with their family as there is here in Ireland. Most family interactions in the United States take place on a major holiday or major events in someone's life. Over here, people come over once a week just to make sure everyone is getting on well. Yes, there are exceptions, and certain sections of the family may not be super close, but immediate family members are some of the most closest I've seen. I think a large part of this is because the country being the size it is, you're always pretty close to a relative, and you can expect to see them at some point. Also, in terms of housing, there's a bit of an issue with it being affordable here. So it's not uncommon to have family members living in the same house or houses together for many years, and I think it's a big thing that strengthens their bonds. In the US, it's incredibly common to be expected to move out of your parents' home before the age of 24, and it's still really common to be expected to be out of the house at 18. In Ireland, you wouldn't be hard-pressed to see 30-year-olds living with their parents, and maybe even having their own families living with them as well. Some could see this as a negative thing, especially when you're like me, coming from somewhere that expects you to have your life figured out by 20. But I definitely see this as being more positive, because it makes your life less focused on what you're able to accomplish yourself and what you and your family can accomplish together. Overall, I am really loving living in Ireland. There's a lot more I could talk about living here, even some negative points that I can mention, and maybe I will do so in the future. But I think this gives a good sense of what I've experienced here so far.